Late August 1944, AO6, 15 hours. Observation Post 4, Pardal, France. The morning report lay crumpled on the desk as the technical officers of the German 155W Anti-Aircraft Regiment struggled to make sense of the numbers before them. The interception rates defied every principle of ballistic probability taught in Luftwaffe technical courses across the Reich. 82% destroyed. It couldn't be true. Through their field telescopes, the German observers had witnessed something that contradicted everything their intelligence services had assured them about Allied anti-aircraft capability. The V-1 flying bombs launched toward London in the pre-dawn hours were being destroyed at an inexplicable rate. They were not being brought down by fighter aircraft performing dangerous pursuit maneuvers. They weren't tangled in the cables of barrage balloons. Instead, they were exploding in mid-air, taken out by anti-aircraft fire over the coastal artillery belt. The shells were detonating with impossible precision around the missiles, bursting near them rather than requiring direct hits. At the headquarters of the 155W Regiment in Château d'Ost, Max Wentel, commander of the entire V-1 offensive, received the reports with growing alarm. Over the course of the German V-1 campaign, the percentage of flying bombs destroyed by coastal guns had risen from 17% in June to 74% by late August, reaching an astonishing 82% on one extraordinary day during the final week of that month. It marked the beginning of the deepest technological shock that the Wehrmacht's weapons scientists would experience during the entire war. What neither WTL nor any German scientist realized was that they were witnessing the debut of one of the most closely guarded secrets of World War II. A technology so revolutionary it was protected with the same level of secrecy as the atomic bomb project itself. The proximity fuse, or variable time fuse, VT, as the Allies codenamed it, was systematically destroying Hitler's terror weapon with a precision that, according to German physics, should have been impossible. The story began 10 weeks earlier, on June 13, 1944, exactly 1 week after D-Day. In response to the Allied invasion of Normandy, Hitler had unleashed upon London his long-promised Vergeltungswaffe, or Weapon of Vengeance. At 4:25 a.m. on June 13th, the first V-1 fell on London, striking Grove Road in Bow, destroying a railway bridge and nearby houses. 6 people were killed, 30 were injured, and 200 were left homeless. The weapon represented years of German development, an unmanned aircraft powered by an Argus AS-109 WWII pulse jet engine, carrying 850 kilograms of amytal explosive and traveling at 640 km/h. It was the world's first operational cruise missile, and the German High Command believed it would bring Britain to its knees. General Walter Dornberger, head of the V-weapons program at Peenemünde, calculated that even with a conservative success rate of just 25%, the V-1 offensive could deliver more explosive power to London than the entire Blitz of 1940–41. Each V-1 cost roughly 5,000 Reichsmarks to produce, a fraction of the cost of a manned bomber mission with no risk to aircrews. At the Army Research Center in Peenemünde, German scientists had reason for confidence. They had developed advanced rocket technology, built operational jet aircraft, and now fielded the first cruise missile. Dr. Robert Lusser, who designed the V-1's control system, calculated that Allied interception was virtually impossible. The flying bomb traveled at 640 km/h at altitudes between 600 and 2,700 meters. British fighters needed speeds exceeding 650 km/h to catch them, and to destroy one, they had to approach within 200 meters, risking destruction from the resulting explosion. As for anti-aircraft fire, the probability of a direct hit on such a small, fast target was estimated at less than 1 in 10,000 shells fired. This was not propaganda. It was sound ballistic science. Conventional time-fused shells required exact prediction, precise calculation, manual adjustment, and perfect synchronization. Against the speed of a V-1, gunners had perhaps 30 seconds from detection to engagement, Max Wachtal, commanding the 155W Anti-Aircraft Regiment, understood these limitations all too well from both sides of the anti-aircraft battle. Within days of the initial launches, German intelligence received troubling reports. British air defenses were adapting at a suspiciously rapid pace. By late June, the interception rate had risen from 10% to 24%, higher than expected, but still within the realm of plausibility. Then came July, and the statistics became inexplicable. German technical officers monitoring effectiveness noted that British guns were reportedly downing V-1s with an incredibly low expenditure of ammunition. Observers along the French coast watched as V-1s sped relentlessly toward England, suddenly enveloped by bursts of anti-aircraft fire, and then plummeted from the sky, despite explosions occurring too far away for direct hits. Unbeknownst to German intelligence, they were witnessing proximity fuses in action, converting near misses into lethal detonations. This technology had already been in use in the Pacific since January 1943, when the USS Helena destroyed a Japanese dive bomber with shells that detonated when detecting proximity to their targets. The failure of German intelligence was complete. A 1939 Oslo report mentioned research into proximity fuses, but German scientists dismissed it as disinformation. Germany had attempted similar developments. Over 30 designs were investigated, but none reached operational status. German engineers had concluded that proximity fuses were impossible. The technical challenges seemed insurmountable. Miniaturizing radio transmitters for artillery shells, ensuring vacuum tubes survived 20,000 Rs, creating batteries that could activate after years in storage and producing them at scale. Yet, by August 1944, American factories were producing 40,000 VT fuse per day. By August 1944, the VT proximity fuse was operating at full effectiveness. The British had reorganized their entire anti-aircraft defense. Guns were now integrated with the American SCR-584 radar for automatic tracking. More importantly, they were firing shells fitted with VT fuses modified specifically to counter the V-1 threat. The Royal Artillery and RAF regiments were redeployed from their North Downs positions to the southern coast, forming a concentrated belt of artillery. That coastal positioning ensured that any dud projectile would fall into the sea and be denied to German recovery teams. When the V-1s crossed the English coast, they entered a death zone where technology overrode statistical probability. The SCR-584 radar automatically locked on targets, computed trajectories, and delivered firing solutions to the guns. The proximity fuse itself housed miniature radio transmitters built with vacuum tubes manufactured by Sylvania Electric and Western Electric. Reflected signals indicating nearness triggered Theratron switches that fired the detonators, sending shrapnel through V-1 casings. On that peak day in late August, coastal guns destroyed 82% of incoming V-1s, a figure German engineers insisted was physically impossible. The reports of an 82% interception rate provoked crisis meetings in German headquarters. WTL suspected sabotage. Emergency inspections found nothing wrong with the missiles. Test firings over German territory showed normal functioning. The problem occurred only against British defenses. German experts concluded that the British must have revolutionary anti-aircraft systems, but could not determine the specifics without captured examples. They tested a variety of countermeasures, different altitudes, larger barrages, night launches, exploiting weather conditions, but nothing reduced the devastation. At Peenemünde, scientists confronted an uncomfortable possibility. If the Allies had developed proximity fuses, they had achieved what German theory had deemed impossible. German efforts to uncover the secret intensified and failed. The fuse program's operational security was near perfect. Production was distributed across 110 factories. Workers knew only the narrow tasks assigned to them. Even the Allied code name variable time misled, suggesting a simple time fuse rather than a proximity sensor. In 1944, the United States electronic industry was wholly committed to fuse production. By the end of the war, some 22 million proximity fuse would have been produced, at a total cost exceeding $1 billion 1940s dollars. The Crossley Corporation alone manufactured more than 5 million fuses, nearly a quarter of the total output. The industrial mismatch was staggering. While Germany struggled to produce V1s with forced labor, the United States converted its electronic industry to mass-produce fuses at unprecedented scale. Daily production peaked at 40,000 units, and unit costs fell from $730 in 1942 to $18 in 1945. Crossley, formerly a maker of radios and refrigerators, employed 10,000 workers and reached a peak output of 16,000 fuses per day. Sylvania's vacuum tube division focused entirely on ruggedized miniature tubes, producing 400,000 tubes daily, supplying 95% of the tubes used. The contrast could not have been clearer. Germany's artisanal, limited production versus the American ability to produce revolutionary technology by the millions. In fact, a single month of American fuse production exceeded Germany's total V1 output for the entire war. Engineering the proximity fuse posed extraordinary challenges. The device had to survive the shock of being fired, accelerations up to 20,000 G, spins of 25,000 RPM, and extreme temperatures. Sylvania adapted hearing aid tube designs into reinforced miniatures capable of withstanding those forces. Batteries had to remain inert for years, yet activate instantly when required. A miniature radio transmitted continuously. When reflections indicated closeness to a large object, the circuit triggered detonation. What appeared simple required overcoming problems German engineers had labeled insurmountable. Quality control was unprecedented. Every fuse underwent multiple tests, random samples were fired from test guns, and rejection rates under 2% demonstrated remarkable manufacturing precision at scale. By September 1944, the V1 offensive was effectively neutralized. Germany switched to night launches and accelerated development of the V2, which flew too fast to be intercepted, but these measures had little strategic effect. The V1 program proved costly and inefficient, consuming resources desperately needed elsewhere. Its reliance on slave labor added a moral dimension to its failure. Tens of thousands of concentration camp prisoners died producing V1 components in underground factories, while American workers toiled voluntarily for pay, often unaware of the full purpose of their labor yet recognizing its importance. At Sylvania's Ipswich plant, more than 5,000 women worked 12-hour shifts producing specialized components, and only after the war did many learn that their work had helped save London. The secrecy surrounding the fuse came at a price. Allied ground forces could not employ proximity-fused artillery until December 1944. Thousands of soldiers died because the technology remained too secret to risk exposing. Yet its use against the V1 was justified. The survival of London during the invasion mattered enormously. For Germany, the V1 program drained critical resources with little strategic return. Launching approximately 25,000 V1s cost millions of Reichsmarks and diverted materials, aircraft, and anti-tank resources needed on shrinking battlefronts. The program's reliance on forced labor deepened its immorality. The proximity fuse defeated weapons forged in suffering, a bitter contrast understood fully only after the war. It embodied the transformation of warfare, victory through engineering and mass production as much as battlefield valor. While Germany chased Wunderwaffen, the United States focused on multiplicative technologies that amplified existing weapons. The proximity fuse made each anti-aircraft gun 5 to 10 times more effective. Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal declared that the fuse had been crucial to the advance toward Japan. Without the protection it provided to surface ships, the Pacific campaign would have cost vastly more men and ships. When the war ended and German interrogations revealed their ignorance of the proximity fuse, the humiliation was profound. They had suspected enhanced radar or faster-acting fuses, but never conceived of self-sensing shells. Even when German forces captured an American ammunition depot during the Battle of the Bulge that contained proximity fuses, they failed to identify them. Their belief that such devices were impossible blinded them to the evidence at hand. The proximity fuse remained classified until September 1945, when the War Department began declassification. For many Allied scientists and production workers, the fuse became one of the most important technologies of the war, second in strategic impact only to the atomic bomb. For the German weapons scientists who had watched their V1s fall like burning stars, the revelation brought both understanding and humiliation. They had not been outmatched by cunning pilots or better strategy, but by an industrial capability they had not imagined possible. The fuse's legacy lived on in modern air defenses, radar altimeters, and electronic warfare. For the German engineers, it remained an enduring rebuke. In modern war, mass-produced good technology often outweighs perfectly crafted singular weapons. On that remarkable day in late August 1944, when proximity fuses destroyed 82% of the German V1s, the nature of warfare changed. The invisible technology that felled the vengeance weapons was the triumph of democratic industrial mobilization, a force the Germans had neither anticipated nor could match. The proximity fuse did more than protect ships in the Pacific and enable the defeat of Japan. It had saved London first. German forces launching V1s never understood why their weapons fell from the sky. They had done everything right by their understanding, developed advanced weapons, trained elite crews, and achieved revolutionary technological breakthroughs. Yet they were defeated by mass-produced electronics, something beyond their imagination. The fuse had converted Hitler's vengeance weapon into London's salvation, and the Germans would not comprehend how or why until long after it mattered. By late August 1944, when the interception rate reached 82%, it was clear that modern warfare had shifted. Industrial capacity and scalable technology could outweigh even the most ingenious singular weapons. Before the fuse, destroying a single V1 required an average of 2,500 heavy anti-aircraft shells. With proximity fuse, the number dropped to just 100 shells. Interception rates along the artillery belts rose from 17% to 82% in just 10 weeks. This success was not achieved through courage or training alone, but through mass production of advanced technology at a scale Germany could neither match nor comprehend. The United States mobilized its entire electronics industry, employing over 80,000 workers and investing more than $1 billion to produce 22 million proximity fuses. When declassified in September 1945, the fuse was recognized as one of the war's most important technological achievements, its only competitor in strategic impact being the atomic bomb. For German scientists who had puzzled over the V1's failures, the revelation was both humbling and shocking. They had believed their weapons represented the pinnacle of technological brilliance, yet they were outmatched by mass-produced electronics costing less than $20 per unit. They had not lost to warriors or tactics. They had lost to assembly lines. The proximity fuse set the stage for modern air defense systems, radar altimeters, and electronic warfare capabilities. For former German weapons engineers, it remained a lasting reminder of their wartime blindness. The fuse demonstrated that industrial-scale production of effective technology could outweigh individual brilliance. Germany had created brilliant, singular weapons. The United States created effective weapons by the millions. On that memorable day in late August 1944, when proximity fuses destroyed 82% of the incoming German V1s, the nature of war changed forever. German crews launching their vengeance weapons never saw the invisible technology that felled them. They had done everything within their knowledge, developed advanced weapons, trained elite crews, and pursued revolutionary engineering. Yet they were defeated by mass-produced electronics, a combination of ingenuity and industrial might they could not imagine. The proximity fuse became a symbol of democratic industrial triumph, the superiority of mass production over artisan perfection, of multiplicative solutions over singular Wunderwaffen. The Germans never discovered what had destroyed their V1s as they fell in flames. They had lost a war not on the battlefield, but on the factory floor. Millions of workers, many women who did not know the purpose of their labor, produced tiny electronic devices that saved a city and altered the course of the war. The 82% interception rate in late August 1944 demonstrated that in modern warfare, industrial capacity could defeat even the most ingenious weapon. The proximity fuse was more than a weapon. It was proof that mobilized science and industry in a democracy could surpass the brilliance imposed by tyranny. And so, the German V1s rained down, destroyed midair, while the invisible hand of industrialized technology safeguarded London, a victory the Germans neither anticipated nor understood.